Hello, and welcome back to Fashion and Founders, the podcast. My name is Victoria Smith, and this week I'm joined by Nik Pollina. Nik used to work at Google and transitioned from tech into fashion after getting laid off. She talks about her journey starting working for herself, and she is now the owner of 7 Moods and the co-owner of Thinks It's Thrifted and a content creator. She has so much advice to share on managing these businesses, growing the businesses, and how to build your mindset around the potential you have as an entrepreneur. She is specifically on the resale side of fashion and in vintage. 7 Moods focuses on designer bags, and Thinks It's Thrifted is more accessible pieces. And although it's fashion focused, I think the advice she shares could be applied to whatever you are doing. She talks about the 2 books and beliefs that help take her from making $10,000 a month to $50,000 a month in the matter of 3 months, which is crazy. And she said she now believes that she can make this a $1 million business. I really wanted to have more conversations about money this season, especially around working for yourself, working in fashion. I just made a TikTok about this, but there's really this belief and narrative that you can't make money in fashion. And I think Nik is an amazing example of proving that wrong. She is so successful, and I'm so excited to share this episode. I felt really inspired after this conversation, and I hope you do too. I'll let Nik take it from here, so let's get into the episode. And this week's highlight is the brand Marmalade Gardens. The founder, Marnie, shared with me that the brand started in 2016. She focuses on quality over quantity, offering carefully curated made-to-order pieces. Her collections are intentionally small, allowing for detailed attention to every piece, while custom jewelry offers are a personal touch for those seeking something unique. They're handmade in Melbourne, Australia, and shipped worldwide, and I saw that they are now on Zero, who they were on the podcast, and they're like the Revolve for sustainable fashion, and they do really intensive and extensive checks to make sure the brands on their website are sustainable and ethical and also cool and chic. I think they're curating the best pieces in one place. And if you don't follow them, they are killing it on Instagram right now. I feel like everything they post is either hilarious or a beautifully designed piece that I have not seen anywhere before, which is literally their ethos. And the Marmalade designed rings, oh my God, I need one on my finger expeditiously. I love this style with like the stones set into it. And Marnie really blends craftsmanship and design so well into her pieces. Definitely go check her out. Hi, Nik. I'm so excited to do this with you. I've visited your vintage store before, so I can't wait to hear more about it. If you can get into a little bit of an introduction.
Yeah, I remember you came to like our Climate Week panel, which was really fun. And we talked about this then. So I'm glad that we're doing it. Yeah, I'm Nik Pollina. I am a content creator and a vintage store owner. And really, I think my mission is to just meet people where they're at in their secondhand shopping journey. So no matter if you've never bought a single piece secondhand or if you're super experienced and you know everything about vintage and the designers and the story behind it, I feel like you can find a space, hopefully, with my community and my businesses. So I have 2 businesses. I have Thinks It's Thrifted, which is a kind of curated thrift store. And we really focus on making an affordable vintage space for New York City women. And that ends up attracting like a younger, I would say like a Gen Z audience and like maybe even Gen Alpha audience. And it's very much like community based. And we do a lot of fun events there, like the Climate Week event that we did with you. And then I also have 7 Moods, which is really a designer vintage bag company, but I'm trying to expand to more like high-end vintage accessories. So hopefully like belts, sunglasses, jewelry coming soon. We'll see.
And I think it is important you have that variety in prices because I feel like it's been a topic I've heard before from people. They're like, everything in New York City is just completely overpriced now for secondhand stuff. And so I think you guys have like a $5 bin. Like, those are the good old days of like vintage shopping.
Yeah, like people understand thrifting in New York City. I feel like probably the best anywhere in the country. So I find that the thrift stores, at least in the city, are relatively picked over. So, and I know a lot of people also don't want to pick through a actual thrift store. So we're trying to bring that kind of concept to our studio space where it's like everything you find is going to be curated and it's going to be like a good piece. But we also do like the $5 bins just to like let it rip and let people just go crazy with thrifting and finding, affordable pieces too.
No, I love it. Okay, before we get into a bit more of that, I want to hear about your background before starting this, because you used to work at Google.
Mm-hmm.
So you went from tech into fashion. Yeah. How did this happen?
Yeah, it's a pretty crazy transition, but I worked in tech for 7 years. I worked at GE in their digital technology leadership program. So I had like 4 different jobs over the course of 2 years. And then I moved to New York City to work at Google. And I worked in UX, which is user experience. I was like a consultant for their top ad clients on how to make their websites look better. So it could be like a Sephora or like a Best Buy or whatever. Mm. And then I went on to be a user researcher at Google Classroom. So I was talking to like education leaders and teachers about how they use Google Classroom basically. And I got laid off in 2023. And for a lot of reasons, I was going through like big existential questions around what I wanted to do with my life. I think I had been talking about quitting for about a year at that point. I think I'm one of those people who has a pretty typical story of corporate was working for me for the first 4 to 5 years. And then slowly but surely the excitement to go to work and the like passion to go to work really started to dip off at that point. So I think when I got laid off, I saw it as a now or never situation where either I was going to pursue my passions or I was going to go back into the corporate world. And I just decided to take the risk. I had seen the benefits of social media already. I had a small following on TikTok where I was helping women get into STEM fields. And I had already kind of started a small career consulting business off of that with very, side project effort. So I think I was like, okay, if I lean into this and really focus on this as what I want to do, then hopefully I'll see the results. And kind of one thing led to the next. I started talking about where to go shopping in New York City, vintage, which was my personal interest, and continued to get different opportunities where I had a rack in a vintage store in Brooklyn called Regeneration. And I remember I just got so into it. Like I was like painting the hangers and I was like thinking about my logo. And I don't even know if I needed to do all of that, but I was just so excited to get to do something creative. And then the first week that I was there, I remember they told me that I sold more than anyone in the store because it's like a collective. So there's multiple different sellers, much more experienced than I was at the time. And I was like, okay, maybe this could be a real thing. One thing led to the next. Met Sienna, opened Thinks It's Thrifted, and I guess the rest is kind of history. So it was really a leap of faith. And I know now that I didn't know very much at all about vintage or fashion, but it was learning on the go. And I think it's worked. So far. I mean, I don't feel like I'm fully there, but it's working. I guess.
No, it definitely is. Were you selling vintage before, or did you just kind of pick something like, okay, I'm going to start doing this?
No, I was shopping vintage. I was not selling. I mean, I had sold some stuff on Depop before, but I wasn't like experienced in sales, period. And I definitely was not experienced in sourcing or vintage selling. No.
Yeah. How did you like get into understanding how that even happens? Because I've heard from other people kind of like you that it's really who you know and like getting these like amazing bulk wholesale vintage in like Europe sometimes for some people. And they have all these connections. Like, how did you start figuring out the steps to take?
I mean, I think it was starting small helped me because I was just starting with a rack and some small pop-ups here and there. I didn't have to do the wholesale. And I was really doing hand picks from thrift stores. I was going to estate sales. I was doing online auctions, things like that. And really like a true reseller at the time. And yeah, like as I've grown, obviously I've had to figure out wholesale and all of that type of stuff. But I think for anyone getting started, my recommendation would be just to start small, start easy, and like put yourself out there. And now I get, reach out from people in New York City being like, I want to sell my bag. Can I consign with you? Or like, I have a full closet that I want to get rid of. Do you want to come here? Which really helps in the long run. And I think, a lot of people think that vintage sellers are lying when they say that there's really no one way that they find their stuff, but there really is no one way. And I still feel like I wish there was something more streamlined, but there's not. Yeah. So Or maybe there is and I still don't know about it. But yeah, it's like a mix of everything, wholesale and going to the thrift stores and going to random people's homes and looking through their closets.
Because I know that, I mean, I have friends and people who listen are maybe like hobby sellers, but they're like, if this is what I could do full time, oh my God, I would love to. And so it's really nice, I think, to hear from you that it's kind of scrappy at the beginning and like you're just figuring it out because it's not like you woke up one day and you're like, I have a successful business. Like, it's been a lot of hard work.
No, I still feel like, it's day by day. And I think like the last 4 months, I would say like literally since probably 2 full years of owning the business, I can finally be like, okay, things seem to be moving in the right direction. It seems to be a little bit more sustainable than they've been. But it really took 2 years to like put in the work and keep it going. So it's not immediate for sure. And I thought it would be.
And I saw a TikTok of yours recently about 2 books that really impacted your business and the money that you're able to make and that you believe you can make. I would love to hear more about that from you.
Yeah. So I made a TikTok kind of talking about how I took my vintage business from making like $10,000 in sales a month to like over $50,000 in sales and like just since the start of 2025, like I was saying. And those 2 books actually are more related to social media than anything. It's called Day Trading Attention by Gary Vee and also $100 Million Leads by Alex Hormozy. And I think where I was at mentally would probably be helpful to explain. I had this store. I was, I had a good size following, but I was still really like image focused, I think, on my social media journey and how I could leverage social media to help my business. So I would delete videos all of the time if I felt like they weren't performing to the level that I thought they should. And I really was afraid to experiment. I would keep it very structured as to what I knew worked on social media. And even though I was getting these cool opportunities and it seemed from the outside that I was successful, I still think, and I was sustaining myself, which was great and it's success in it of itself, but I wasn't taking the business to the next level because of honestly like an ego thing, I think. And really what Gary Vee probably taught me the most was that like social media is free and never in the recent history of marketing has there been a free tool that you can just use to experiment and promote yourself. And it's not high school anymore. Like, don't have an ego about what your videos do. Just put them out there and you have no idea what it's going to turn into. And that's really when I started just being very transparent and being like, hey, I'm selling bags. Here are what the bags look like. And not really caring how the video performed in terms of TikTok or Instagram, but really started looking at it more from a business standpoint. And I think that was like the changing of success for me, where it was like, at the end of the day, defining success is more, I want to be an entrepreneur and maybe I don't necessarily care about being a content creator, although I see content creation as a tool to be an entrepreneur. Yeah. So I think that's really what the switch was for me. And just in general, following those 2 individuals has really helped me, like even beyond the books. I just think they are a very no bullshit way to think about being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I really love that take. And I'm like now thinking about how I need to apply that to myself in the podcast. So I'm going to go read those books. Something else that stood out to me in that video was that you said you now believe you can make this into $1 million business. And I feel like, well, that's why a lot of people, I think, want to be self-employed. They have a floor, not a ceiling of how much they can earn from what they're doing. I think sometimes putting a real number to it and maybe even like saying it out loud and sharing it with people of like, I want to make X amount this year can be really scary. Yeah. What was that mindset shift of like, no, I can make this like that amount?
There was 2 things. From like an actual mathematical standpoint, I just realized that you have to make, I believe it's like $83,000 in sales a month to potentially have $1 million business. So when I saw that I was, when I hit that point where I was like, okay, I had made close to that. No, I mean, it's not close, but like I'm on the trajectory to do that.
Well, 50K is close to 80.
I felt like I was like, oh, okay, this is more possible that I realized is that revenue? No. So I think that's another thing where like eventually you can hit that goal and then you'll change your goals. But so I think mathematically I kind of just realized that. But the other piece is I was actually at a panel last night and there was a lot of people there asking me how they can get started. They really were like, they almost like all of them like had a social media. They had already started their business. They had already started sourcing if they were a vintage store. They already had their products made or they had even done a market before, but they weren't like willing to say, I have a business. So when I got laid off, I had met with Ari Forwarda, who's the owner of Half Days, who's weirdly just a friend of a friend. And I had met with her that day unexpectedly, told her I got laid off, told her I wanted to go into entrepreneurship. And she was like, my number one tip is just to tell everyone what you're doing because you have no idea what is going to come from just speaking things out loud. And that's how she's gotten a ton of opportunities and how she's created this super successful business. So I've really ran with that. And I think that's what holds me accountable too, to say I'm opening a vintage store and I just do it. So if I say I'm going to have $1 million business, then I'll just do it. I think knowing myself.
Yeah.
I think I force myself to do things, which is good.
And I think like stepping into that identity sometimes where people say like, if you keep saying I'm not a morning person, you're not going to wake up at 6 a.m. Like
Totally.
You've just told yourself this narrative. And so you can make that work positively for yourself. I did see that you had that Shopify panel last night. I feel like you just have these really cool partnerships too. Is this coming from your content side, the business side, friends of friends? Like, how are you cultivating these relationships? And do you have any tips for other people who are like, I want to be on a panel, like I want to host an event?
That's a good question. I think I am probably my number one skill set is connection and communication, probably. So I think that's something that comes naturally to me is talking to people, genuinely wanting to know about them and realizing natural partnerships that could benefit both of us. And I really don't think I do it intentionally to be like a business. Like I'm not trying to be like a social climber or anything like that. I genuinely love talking to people. And I think that's what ends up leading to these cool ideas and cool opportunities. But I also do really believe that if you're starting a business, you need to be posting on social media because of things like this, where my husband does my partnership stuff. So we just started using Shopify this year. He reached out to Shopify for me. So shout out to Fred. And I'm doing like a 3-part video series with them. And through that, I realized that they had this physical space. So I think it's just like putting yourself out there and getting yourself in the door and then not being afraid to ask for those additional pieces of like partnership. Because I think there's always ways that, especially in New York, people always want to collaborate and come up with new fun ways to like have a fun pop-up or work together. Because entrepreneurship can be relatively lonely. So I think people are always looking for like friends and partners in that. And yeah, I don't know if that's even advice or just like my thoughts, but
no, I think that makes sense.
I think it's like be outgoing, be genuinely curious about people. And then if you think of an opportunity, just don't be afraid to say it out loud. I don't think people, if they say no, they say no.
Yeah. That's like, I would say my advice I live by is don't be afraid to be seen trying.
Yeah.
And it's just like a lot of everything is trying. And like sometimes it doesn't work out or it does. But if you aren't like, I don't know, maybe it's like from playing sports too. I'm like, you have to take a shot for it to go in. And then you get really comfortable being like, oh, I missed 20 times, like, so I don't know. I think sometimes people can be scared of that on social media, but it really is this powerful tool. You manage 3 different businesses because I'm thinking of your content as a business as well.
Yeah.
How are you managing your time, your energy, your resources?
Well, I'm a psycho, but I also think I would not take that advice. Like I would not do what I'm doing. I would really do content and then I would focus on one business if I really had to give someone advice, because there is so much once you open the floodgates of a single business. There's so many directions you can take a business. And at first you're like, I'm going to sell clothes and that's what the business is going to be. But once you start thinking about partnerships and tech you could use and areas you could branch out to and fun pop-up ideas you have, there's so much there. So I would say don't do what I'm doing. But I do think having a partner is very helpful. Sienna, obviously, and I split a lot of the work for things that's thrifted. And I think when it comes to like more managerial tasks, that's super helpful to have a partner. On the other side of my business with Seven Moods, like I said, my husband does actually help me a lot. And our goal one day would be for him to actually be able to be like a full-time founder and co-founder of that business. So I would say partners are super helpful. And then, yeah, like I have a few employees that obviously do a lot of the work and they're great employees. So don't be afraid to hire someone. And if you are, there's always like college interns, especially if you're in New York City, that need college credit and need internships. So that's a great way to kind of dip your toes into having an employee. And then, yeah, I mean, it's just not having like a life, and that too. So I think just having like acceptance of like my schedule is crazy.
Yeah.
I think the more you can accept that, the better.
Yeah, but then it's like your work that you love is your life, and like you're working with your friend and your husband.
Yeah.
Do you have tips on working with people you love? Because I feel like I've talked to a lot of people who either work with like a partner, a spouse, or like a best friend even. And I feel like it's often a warning of like, don't do that. But it seems to be going great for all of these people and you. So how have you been doing that?
Well, with Sienna, I didn't know her actually when we decided to be partners. I guess I didn't really say this, but when I started the pop-up at Regeneration, like my first ever time that I sold, the following week, Sienna DM'd me and was like, hey, I have a partnership with Yahoo and I'm doing this series. Can I put one of your shirts in the video? And I had followed Sienna and I was a very small creator at the time. So I was like, oh my God, this big creator like wants to wear my shirt in a series. Like, this is crazy. And she was dating a guy from Michigan at the time, weirdly from an area that I go to a lot in the summer. And she saw that I was there. So it kind of sparked like this natural friendship where she was like, hey, like, I'm actually going out to Michigan a bunch. Like, do you have any tips or whatever? And I think we saw in each other that we had this like really intense drive. We were like not afraid to take risks and like we were both very hard workers, but we also had two different skill sets. So I was a little bit more like business acumen and Sienna is a lot more like she went to school for film. She's very creative. She knows how to do the content really well. And I think that like synergy really worked for us. So I think that piece, I also did follow the advice of like, don't work with someone that you know. And with my husband, I think this was like a natural progression of him seeing how the business has kind of evolved over time and seeing where I needed help. I was like kind of a control freak at first with that. So I think like it can be very difficult. Like, but what we said is we saw it as us learning a new type of relationship. So I think like you learn to be, boyfriend and girlfriend at first, you learn to be roommates then, and then most people just learn how to be parents together if they choose to go down that path. For us, it was like, okay, we're learning how to be business partners. So I think there is going to be some like rocky pieces where we need to learn different kinds of communication for talking about business. And like, also like, we just don't like let it get into our personal relationship. We just really see like anything that we might argue about in relation to business is only because we're like passionate about the business and not because we're like mad at each other. So
yeah,
I think that's how we do it. Fred's also like the most chill person ever. So I think he like doesn't get mad, but
yeah.
So I think that helps. So
no, that's good advice. Kind of like keep it separate. It's a learning curve like anything else. Okay, pivoting a little bit, I want to get into some of your advice for different sections of people because I know there's girls who are in college and want their first internship or looking for their post grad or are starting a business. And you said that you kind of got started on social media giving career advice. So what were some of those tips that really stood out when you were doing that and like for you and your experience?
So like what I say to people is, and I think maybe we'll see if this is relevant for entrepreneurship once I finish this thought. Basically, like you have different types of knowledge. So like you have like the knowledge of the job itself. You can have a knowledge of the area of business that you are in, and then you can have knowledge of the actual company. So those are three ways to think about working, and you're not going to probably have all three. And when you first start out, obviously. So hopefully you went into school with or took some class in the area that you want to move towards. So if you are in college, I would say at least take 1 or 2 classes in the area that you want to move towards. So you have some level of like knowledge that you can speak to when you're in an interview. So you'll have that. And then you basically have to convince the company that you have that really well. And then you're going to be able to learn the area of business it's in, like if it's in fashion or if it's in environmental science or whatever, you can learn that and then do your due diligence on the company. I think the company is probably the easiest one to learn. But that's why, like, when you're in a company, it's easier to pivot to another job because it's like you already know the area of the business, you already know the company itself. So if you're trying to jump between jobs, it's much easier because you already know 2 of the 3. So that's the way I would think about career in general. But I also feel, and this is like crazy advice that, you know, maybe won't hold up, I really do see AI taking a lot of young people's jobs in the next like 10 years. I like watch a bunch of stuff about AI and like I really do feel if you have the opportunity to shadow entrepreneurs and you have the means to maybe work a part-time job or even just like an unpaid internship on the side to shadow entrepreneurs, I think that's the better path at this point. Like I really would encourage young people to go down entrepreneurship and work for yourself because it's such a crazy work environment now. And it's so unpredictable that the only thing you can predict is yourself, I think. So that's why I would say like maybe go into entrepreneurship. But that's maybe I'm biased at this point.
No, that's like important advice, I think. And sometimes it's like the hard thing to hear, but it's what's going to make the difference in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I have some speed round questions for you. What, besides your vintage store, is some of your vintage recommendations in New York City?
I mean, I love Desert Stars Vintage. If you're looking for like a really insane vintage dress or fur coat that you will like not have anywhere else. It's very colorful, very cool. It's in her apartment.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I love it. I love anything in like apartments or like downstairs in a weird basement. I love Select Vintage. She does bags. She does clothes too. Hers is mainly online though. I think she's actually moving away from the showroom, but check her out. And I love the Niche Shop on Upper East and Upper West Side. She has really great stuff and it's pretty affordable. I'm trying to think. I have so many favorites.
Because I've seen your series too of like visiting other vintage stores, which I think is cool because like you own a vintage store and technically those could be your competitors, but instead it's this very collaborative feeling and space. So
yeah, well, that's how I learned. I was doing content, going to different stores to promote them, and I talked to a lot of store owners. So that's really how I learned a lot. And then I would actually say I went to Into Archive the other day. If you're looking for like more insane designer pieces, Into Archive is so cool. I was like really, really impressed. So maybe those places.
Yeah, I've seen them on Instagram, so I'll have to check them out.
I didn't even know they had a showroom. I was like, oh, yeah, they're like an online. And then they had the 6 showroom in Flatiron.
What is one of your favorite vintage pieces you owned?
My favorite vintage piece that I own is my second look at my wedding that I got from Desert Stars Vintage, actually, because I think it represents a lot of things. Like I was just getting started in this whole journey when I found this piece. It was exactly 1 year out from my wedding when I found it. And that's like, I worked for Janelle for a little bit, helping her like with social media consulting. And that's when I met her. And I don't know, it was just like a unique experience. And I think that's what got me so hooked on like unique shopping in general. And then of course it's like super sentimental to me because I wore it at my wedding. Yeah, I love it. That's probably my favorite piece.
Amazing. Yeah. And what is your fashion hot take?
My fashion hot take is that Forever 21 can now be vintage because everything is, after 20 years is vintage. And I think a lot of people personally, as a millennial, don't want to accept that things like that are vintage because it feels like we're old, but honey, we are old. So Forever 21 is 20 years old. So, and it's closing down as we
that makes it more vintage. And it's like limited.
Yeah. I mean, the new stuff is not. But there are, me and Sienna talk about this, like there are like silk pieces from like old Forever 21. They used silk.
Like real silk?
Yeah. Oh. It's crazy.
Did you see, I think it was the girl on Depop who sold that yellow Sabrina Carpenter dress and like the leopard print sequin shorts were on there and it was like vintage Forever 21 and everyone like
it was like 200
freaked out. Well, yeah, she was selling it for a lot of money.
Yeah.
But everyone like freaked out and they're like Forever 21 is not vintage.
Yeah. I mean,
but it was more so about the year.
I don't fully remember. I don't know if those shorts would have constituted as like vintage, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, clearly she has Sabrina Carpenter wearing her stuff, so I guess price it whatever you want. But for me, I'm like, bad at pricing in the sense that like I think I like always skew towards the consumer rather than like my business, which whatever. But I don't really believe in overpricing things, so I would never do that.
Go shop at things that's thrifted.
Yeah.
But no, I agree with you. Like 20 years, we have to accept it.
Yeah.
You gave your 2 book recommendations, but do you have any other resource recommendations? It could be a podcast, a newsletter, a content creator.
Yeah, like I have been listening to Female Founder World podcast a ton. That's really helped me recently. And also I just started listening to this new podcast called Ladies Who Launch.
Yeah.
And I really love that one too. And then follow Gary Vee and Alex Hormozy, and then The Creative Act, A Way of Living. It's very good. It's like opens your mind to like creativity and gets you like thinking any idea that comes to your head, like how can you make it into reality?
I need to start like a book club or something with like the resources people share, because I get some really good recommendations and sometimes stuff I've never heard of.
Yeah, you should. You should like start a community of like female or fashion founder book club.
I know. Do you have any upcoming announcements? I feel like you host a lot of events. Anything we should look out for?
Yeah, we did our first Thanks It's Thrifted market in March, and it kind of is like a new take on the market, hopefully, where we do like a traditional vintage market during the day and it turns a little bit more nightlife at night. So you'll have like drink tickets, we have like a DJ or a band or whatever, and it's really fun. And last time it was so much fun. We literally we're like, we're doing this again 100%. Like the vendors loved it. The people loved it. So we're like, we're doing it again. So we have a space that we just got in Soho. We're so excited by it. It's so much bigger. And so we're going to have a ton more vendors. And I think it's actually going to be a 2-day event. So there'll be a preview night and a Saturday, like full day extravaganza. And that will be on June 14th weekend. So stay tuned because we're going to post about that this week.
So fun.
Yeah.
So it goes like late into the night, or what time does it go into?
Yeah. So basically what we do is we're going to do noon to 5 is like the normal market. We close down for 2 hours, and then 7 to 11 p.m. we open, and there's like an open bar type of situation. Like you have tickets and DJ comes.
That's so cool.
It's fun.
That's fun. I haven't seen anyone else do that. You guys should partner with 4 a.m. Skin. Do you know Jade?
Oh, yeah.
She was on, but I remember that like caused some buzz because they had their launch party at the club at like 1 a.m.
Oh, wait, that's a good idea.
And it's like skincare for the girls who like want to go out. And they're about to launch in Sephora.
Yeah, she's killing it. Yeah. I've seen her stuff.
Where can everyone find you?
On social media, Nik Pollina, on Instagram, TikTok, and then also now on YouTube Shorts.
Newsletter?
My website is 7moods.nyc. I have a newsletter called Nik's Picks that you can sign up for, and we talk about all the fun things going on in New York City, kind of related to fashion. Also, come to our studio space. Thanks It's Thrifted, 53 Bridge Street, Unit 204 in Dumbo. I think that's it.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was so fun.